Federal Workforce Fallout is sponsored by Prince George's Community College.
You're watching Federal Workforce Fallout, where each week we break down the impacts to our neighbors in the federal workforce. I'm Larry Miller. This show is dedicated to the reduction of the federal workforce and the impact that it's having on workers, their family, and our local and national economy. Well, last week we invited Dr. Sarah Wetzel, Executive Director of the American Historical Association, to sit down with us to talk about their ongoing lawsuit against DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. And they argue DOGE illegally took control and carried out cuts that violated the First Amendment and Equal Protection Clause. The Trump administration denies that claim, saying that DOGE falls under the president's authority and that the group has no legal standing. Well, as a part of that lawsuit, some DOGE staffers had to sit for a deposition, which resulted in some rather eye-opening revelations on how DOGE determined what to cut. Here's part 2 of our conversation over those depositions and what they revealed. Getting back to our conversation about this deposition, we got additional revelations about not just about ChatGPT. There was also something that was raised regarding anti-Black violence and how that was also considered a form of DEI as well. Let's take a listen to this clip from Justin Fox talking about that.
Do you agree with ChatGPT's assessment here that a documentary is DEI if it explores historical events that significantly impacted Black civil rights?
Yes.
Okay. Why would that be DEI?
It's focused on a singular race. It is not for the benefit of humankind. It is focused on a specific group of, or a specific race, here being Black.
Why would learning about anti-Black violence not be to the benefit of humankind?
Objection.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, then what are you saying?
I'm saying it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
You said it's not to the benefit of humankind, right?
Is that what I said?
Yeah. Could you read back the witness's response about benefits to humankind?
Question, why would that be DEI? Answer, it's focusing on a singular race. It is not for the benefit of humankind. It is focused on a specific group or a specific race, here being Black.
So what do you mean by not for the benefit of humankind?
That's a very subjective. The way that I phrased it there wasn't exactly what I meant. It is focused on a specific subset of race, and therefore it relates to DEI.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that this is not for the betterment of humankind. That was a misphrasing.
All right, so that was Justin Fox talking about a documentary that dealt specifically with anti-Black violence, and that documentary and funds surrounding it were a form of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Hard for you to watch moments like that? It seems like there have been several over the course of the deposition that went viral, and I think a lot of people talked about online. From your perspective, just how difficult was it for you to see moments like that?
As a historian, it's very difficult because, on the one hand, there is the specifics of the particular thing that we're talking about here, which is the Colfax massacre, which is an extremely important event to understand in the Reconstruction era. On the other hand, the misconstrual of what the connection between what is studied and who it is intended to benefit is really difficult to watch, because when historians are doing their work, we are not focusing on a particular topic only to benefit the people whom we happen to be studying. We are helping to elucidate moments of the past that should be of benefit to all people because they have greater knowledge of something that they did not know about previously. The other thing that's difficult is that there is underlying all of these this assumption that if you have narrowed your research topic or the topic of a documentary, that somehow it is too specific, and like what is the Colfax massacre supposed to do? Address the entirety of the world? And the other thing that is particular about this is that the Colfax massacre is not only a story of Black Americans. It is a story of racial tension between Black and white Americans. And so there's a lot of nuance to so many of the projects that are covered within these NEH grants that are just completely lost.
Is there any legitimacy though to the concern from some, if we say white men in particular, because it seems there be consistency amongst this group, that they feel like they are being sort of washed out when it comes to history, that they are being disregarded, that they have been sort of typecast as being racist, not good contributors to our society. Is there legitimacy to that? Is there, from your perspective, is there a concern that you can see from them that says, well, I can see what is going on here, but still no?
I think that what's very important to understand about the kind of work that humanities scholars and especially historians do is to understand not just an event, but the individuals who are involved in it and all of the messiness that comes with being an individual person. And I think a lot of what we've seen is worry about whether or not we have over-focused on the slaveholding aspects of our founding fathers' history, for instance, and that we are ignoring their contributions. We're not ignoring their contributions, we're complicating them as people. And by doing so, I think that all of people who we study actually become better able to be understood, and in some cases more relatable, because they are because we are understanding that people are conflicted themselves, and that we may have told stories that were very triumphal, but there's always a messiness, always a push and pull within historical events and in the things that people had to grapple with in the past.
It's interesting because as you mentioned, I think about Jefferson in particular, right? I think about his contributions, not only on the science front, but also to the formation of our current democracy. I think about his relationship with Sally Hemings. I think about the children that they had together, the families that were created as a result. And so to that point, when you talk about sort of the complexities, it is this and, right? It seems like that's certainly where we're going with this. There were also issues that were talked about related to women. Another documentary that was also the target as well. Let's take a listen.
Why is a documentary about Holocaust survivors DEI?
Objection.
It's the gender-based story that's inherently discriminatory to focus on this specific group.
It's inherently discriminatory to focus on what specific group?
The gender-based, so females during the Holocaust.
And you believe that that's inherently discriminatory?
I'm just saying that's what it's focused on.
Sure. But
And this is related to DEI.
Right. But you just used the term inherently discriminatory. What did you mean by that?
It's focusing on DEI principles, gender being one of them.
So a documentary that's about women would be DEI.
Objection.
Is that fair to say?
No.
Okay. So tell me why what I just said isn't DEI, but what you just said is DEI.
Objection.
It's a specifically focused on Jewish cultures and amplifying the marginalized voices of the females in that culture. It's inherently related to DEI for those reasons.
Okay. Because it's about Jewish culture.
Plus marginalized female voices during the Holocaust, gender-based violence.
All right, so that was Mr. Fox talking about a documentary about female Holocaust survivors that was identified as a part of DEI. If history serves me correctly, women are very much a part of history in general. You really can't talk about history and not talk about the contributions of women, regardless of who they are, where they show up, and sort of what group they also may be affiliated with.
Absolutely. I mean, women tend to make up roughly 50% of the population,
right,
and are central to all aspects of the past. However, for a very long time, historians focused their attention solely on the experiences of men, and we told our history through a male perspective. And so there was also a period of time where, as a result of that, historians turned their attention specifically to understanding women's experiences of many of the same topics, you know, like the American Revolution, the Civil War, and whatnot, that people had previously written about, but almost exclusively focusing on men. But the other thing is that, you know, women have experiences that are shaped by their gender, and that is also something that is essential to the understanding the context and the historical context in which they lived, and the way that shaped the way in which they acted, and as a result, the past that we are attempting to understand.
I'm curious because the Trump administration says that these cuts were necessary because they were going to save money, that they were going to make sure that the budget was going to get under control, and that they were going to weed out and find wasteful spending and get rid of it. You say that DOGE hadn't contacted the association at any point in time prior to the notice that you received that these funds were being cut. Yeah. Had they contacted you and said that we needed to find ways to sort of trim the fat, would you have been able to find any sort of fat maybe in your program or anywhere else that may have been able to satisfy that demand?
The NEH grants are already on very tight budgets. Generally, organizations are also contributing their own funds towards the project. So for instance, for an institute, say, we have a certain budget that we're able to spend, and we are donating time from one or two of our staff members to that on top of that. They're not being paid, but rather that's coming out of our own budget. And so these are already very, very slim. They have been trimmed down. The NEH guidelines are very, very clear and offer, you know, specifics on how much money can be spent for each type of item. So they're already designed to be as low budget as is feasible. So trying to find areas to cut for something like that would be very difficult.
All right. And at any point, had your organization done anything in that regard to sort of ensure that the money that was being given to you from this federal agency was being used correctly, was being appropriate in sort of the way in which the program should function, and that every dollar sort of had a home?
Absolutely. We are very careful about complying with the terms of our grants and with ensuring that we are spending our line items appropriately.
Our thanks to Dr. Wetzel for talking with us. You can watch part 1 of our conversation right now streaming on WUSA 9+. Well, still ahead on federal workforce fallout, the Trump administration puts a major federal charity program on hold.
When programs are canceled, when federal funding is canceled, it's hard for us as nonprofits, but it's really hard for people living on the lowest incomes in this country.
The impact it's having on local groups that are already stretched thin. Welcome back. A donation pipeline local charities say is critical to helping the underprivileged could be disappearing. The federal giving program has raised more than $9 billion for charities nationwide in the last 60 years. But the Trump administration has effectively hit pause on the program, saying that it's wasteful. WUSA 9 Chief Investigative Reporter Eric Flack went to the director of the agency behind the decision to find out what's going on.
Bread for the City is the largest food pantry in D.C., serving 32,000 people every year.
When programs are canceled, when federal funding is canceled, it's hard for us as nonprofits, but it's really hard for people living on the lowest incomes in this country.
Bread for the City is one of a growing number of nonprofits worried they may lose a program known as the Combined Federal Campaign, or CFC, which has channeled more than $9 billion in donations from federal employee paychecks to charities nationwide since 1964.
At a nonprofit like Bread for the City, this is the worst time to be losing any sort of funding or donation source, with these lines for services behind me only getting longer.
Here's how the CFC works. Federal employees choose a charity and then donate directly from their paycheck before taxes. In 2024, CFC money went to nearly 4,500 charities nationwide. But this year, those charities say they were stunned when the program's online giving portal was decommissioned by the Office of Personnel Management.
My personal view is this is incredibly inefficient. It's a terrible use of donor dollars.
OPM Director Scott Cooper says there has been no formal decision to end the program. But Cooper says CFC simply isn't efficient enough.
Collectively, $38 million was raised in that campaign. To administer the program, we spent $21.5 million, so less than 50% of those dollars actually made it to the charities.
Cooper says the program is now a relic of a pre-internet era, before people could use their computers to donate to any charity they choose.
I don't think any donor has an expectation that 50% of their dollars are not going to the cause for which they intend.
Charities push back, arguing that they, not the taxpayers, pay the administrative costs through application and listing fees, and that even 50 cents on the dollar is better than nothing.
A lot of animals could be helped with that money.
Penny Smith volunteers for HEART, the homeless animals rescue team based in Fairfax and Loudoun counties.
Groups like HEART, it was really a lifeline for us, contributing at least 20% of our annual budget.
Cooper says one solution would be for the federal government to simply hand over its list of past CFC donors directly to the charities so they can solicit donations themselves and keep every dollar. Problem is, Cooper isn't sure the government even owns that data, meaning for now, charities like Bread for the City still have a clear mission.
We're seeing an increase in the amount of people coming to get our services and a decrease in people being able to donate.
But a cloudy future about a funding source it has relied on for decades.
And so CFC going away right now, it's just really bad timing.
Eric Flack, WUSA 9.
The OPM director told us that there is no timeline for a final decision on the program's future. We'll keep pushing for answers and we'll bring them to you as soon as we have them. Meantime, a new report is taking a closer look at how artificial intelligence is reshaping the job market, especially for younger workers here in the D.C. region. Axios reports that entry-level jobs aren't necessarily disappearing, but they are getting harder to land. And experts say that these changes could also benefit federal workers, helping them adapt, upskill, and stay competitive as agencies increasingly integrate AI into their operations. Our Lorenzo Hall talked with Nicole McNamara, founder of Catalyst Innovation and host of the podcast, Who Moved My Career, to help us break it down.
Joining us right now to break it all down is Nicole McNamara. She's founder of Catalyst Innovation and host of the podcast, Who Moved My Career. Nicole, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Lorenzo.
All right, so at a basic level, what is AI actually doing to entry-level jobs right now?
Yeah, Lorenzo, when I was on the show a few months ago, I said that you can't ignore AI, but you also can't blame everything on it. And I still feel that. It's still true. Yes, AI is completely shifting the availability of traditional jobs for young job seekers. All of those kind of entry level jobs, especially, are easily automated by AI. And so what you're seeing is those jobs are not readily available. And that acceleration, by the way, isn't slowing down, it is only speeding up. So young people need to react immediately and not wait.
Yeah, I'm looking at the video that we're seeing right now, a lot of folks talking about AI. Since our last conversation, we've seen more and more people using it. So this report highlights the DC region specifically. Why are young workers here feeling this more than other places?
Well, if you look at the makeup of DC, especially when we think about entry level jobs, it's mostly knowledge work, right? Government, nonprofit, consulting. Those are the kinds of jobs that AI came for first. And we have a gluttony of them in this area. We don't have the diversity of industries that you see in other places where they have tech or manufacturing or automotive. We just don't have that kind of industry here. And you're also having another force happen, which is the shrinking of the federal government. So those jobs were pretty plentiful. You're really seeing a contraction of that right now. And that combined with AI and the contraction of the federal job market is just making it a tougher place than a lot of other places. But I will say that change is coming for everyone, everywhere at some point. We're just kind of the headlights, if you will, in terms of where it's happening first.
That's scary. I feel like I definitely need to make sure I'm ready, Nicole, after hearing that. So let's talk about employers now. What are they looking for that they weren't looking for even a few years ago?
Yeah, so we're seeing this shift towards what we call skills-based hiring. So these are the kinds of things that you don't always see show up in a resume. Things like comfort with ambiguity or relationship building, or can you articulate how a business makes money? And not always do those things show up in places like your resume. So this idea that you've got to be able to articulate your value really clearly in terms that really make sense to folks is incredibly important. But I would also be doing a disservice to people if I didn't say out loud, you don't have to be an AI engineer, okay? You don't have to be prompt engineering in the middle of the night, but you as a baseline need to understand what these tools can do, what they can't do, and how to use those things in the industry for which you're interested in.
Yeah, so all right, we're approaching graduation season. If you're starting that new career, what should you be doing now to stay competitive?
So I think there's three big things. The first one is you've got to use the tools that are available. I mean, we talk a lot about kind of the bad parts of AI in the job search, but there's a real flip side to that, which is an incredible dearth of amazing programs that can help you be better in the job market. When you think about Gemini, for instance, Claude, even there's platforms out there like hiringcoach.ai that is specifically focused for those who wanted to get into mission-centric work. Start using the tools to your benefit. Don't be scared of them because you think they're going to steal your job. They could also help you find the next one. So really getting comfortable with those tools is job number one. The second thing I would say is if resumes are going to die in the near future, as I believe that they will, that means that your personal brand and your personal story become so much more important. This is how you talk about yourself, how you really deliver the narrative about your career and what you're interested in, and to make sure you're doing that both online and, my third part, get out from behind the box, get out in real life, get spending time with other humans. That part is never going to be automated by anything, including AI. And so the more that young folks in particular can get out, go to the networking event, ask people to spend time with you, find mentors. The human connection in the age of AI is incredibly important, and we need to spend more time talking about it.
I love that, yeah, because every time we talk about technology, we never talk about the human connection. So this is all great information. The next time we're going to have to talk about using these tools, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You got it, because there's a lot of great stuff out there.
Yeah, you make us
We don't need to be scared of it always.
You make us better. Nicole McNamara, always good to see you. We'll see you again soon.
You too, Lorenzo. Thanks.
You can count on WUSA 9 to stay on top of the reductions to the federal workforce, those affected, and what it means for our communities. In the meantime, scan the QR code on your screen. It will take you to a special section of WUSA9.com dedicated to our coverage of this story. And of course, we'll keep you updated right here on federal workforce fallout. We appreciate you being here. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.
You've learned a lot in life, on the job, in the military, raising a family. At Prince George's Community College, that experience can count as college credit. You could earn up to 15 college credits towards your degree just for what you already know. Eligible Prince George's County grads can even attend tuition-free with the Promise Scholarship. So what's your game plan? Turn your journey into a degree at Prince George's Community College.